Today on Cinema 9, we're talking about what happens when a class decides who of them would survive the apocalypse. Hypothetically speaking. I'm not sure about this movie's cover. In fact, I'm not sure about the movie's marketing at all. It often states the film as being a sci-fi, which, I guess. And the poster depicts a class standing outside, with the bombs falling around them, which I really like. Zimmon is standing off to the side of the class, almost as if being like the narrator you would see at like a stage play. The light from the bomb, too, in the back is great, kind of lighting up the side of the class there, with him off to the side, separated by his own creation. I'm not sure what they were thinking with the bottom of the poster, which depicts Zimmett running to the bunker, possibly just want to show off some of the great shooting locations the film entails. It lists a bunch of stats or adjectives. These students are smart and talented, and some are very attractive, but they're not exactly stranded. This is a hypothetical situation, and even within the situation the students imagine, they're not exactly stuck there. They're hoping to get into a bunker before they get killed. Again, I blame the film's marketing. It seems the film was made out to look like some sort of Battle Royale or Hunger Games clone, when it's anything but. This film for me is like a dream almost, not in the sense that I fantasize about it, but in the sense that I don't know anyone else who's seen it, which is par for the course for the indie circuit. But even then, I've never really met anyone else who's seen it who I could discuss it with or talk about its themes. At least not at the time of this recording. The flick first premiered at NIF, or the Neuchâtel International Film Festival in 2013, under the title The Philosophers. Its release outside the festival circuit has the name changed to After the Dark, which I'll refer to it as for brevity's sake. I found this film on Netflix years ago. The movie is quite an interesting piece, which is why it's stuck with me for years now after watching it. The story is about a class studying internationally in Jakarta, and on their last day of school, their professor, Mr. Zimmett, played by Wachowski siblings regular James Darcy, who starred in the Agent Carter TV show and made an appearance in Avengers Endgame, the first character to go from TV to film in the MCU. Darcy plays against type compared to his other roles. As a philosophy teacher, he holds intelligence as a primary trait in all humans, with emotion taking a backseat to logic. Zimmett plans a thought experiment as the final exam for his class, taking the theme of emotion versus logic to new heights. The main focus of the class, though, is on one of the students, James, played by Rhys Wakefield, best known as the plate killer trying to get inside Ethan Hawke's house in The Purge. James has never been Zimmett's favorite. All year the teacher has looked down on him prior to the film's events, for reasons we're not initially told. As I mentioned, James is the main focus, but he's not the main character, but more on that in a bit. So, what is the experiment? Zimmett gives a hypothetical what-if scenario and asks the students to decide the course of the events. The scenario plays out like this. On the eve of a nuclear apocalypse, the class must come together to decide who among them should be allowed in a bunker that would allow them to survive the nuclear blast. A bunker built for 10 people from a class of 21. To sweeten the deal, he passes out note cards to each of the students, depicting what jobs they'll have in the scenario.
James? I am an organic farmer.
I'm a structural engineer.
I'm a real estate agent. I'm a carpenter.
I'm an opera singer.
Making them more or less important to the survival of the human race after the apocalypse. The film showcases the experiment as it appears in the collective minds of the students and Zimmett. For clarity, we the audience see it the same way, under the assumption that the generally unimportant things like the color of our shirt is different, but there are times in the film where it's clear who's in control of the simulation, who is, speaking and who's in there. And other times it's not so clear. It just becomes slightly, disjointed in terms of when things are happening and who's saying they're happening. There are times where a character has, within the simulation, claimed that they've tricked someone else. It's like, how do you, hypothetically trick someone? It just doesn't quite translate well, I think. And it was one of the parts of the movie I feel is just a bit sloppy. Zimmett is the closest thing the film has to an antagonist. He makes the class appear as if they're in control of the experiment, without revealing that the game was rigged from the start. Zimmett is swaying the class into using logic over their emotions. The class is a who's who of young actors, which I'll rattle off real quick. Of the students is Petra, played by Sophie Lowe, who plays the character very monotone and at times almost sheepish. This due to Petra's high intelligence but a reliance on emotion.
Bribery is not my very favorite form of negotiation. They're both wrong. Don't be fooled by the arithmetic. It's murder. Either way. I'm going to change things now. You're not going to like it.
We're told Petra is top of the class and the girlfriend of James, who's the bottom of the class in terms of academics. Petra is weary of Zimmet's mistreatment of James, and doesn't regard her teacher well, even attempting to walk out on the mention of the experiment, to which she suspects more is going on. It's due to her mistrust of Zimmet, fearing him after he mercy kills the students not picked to go into the bunker in the hypothetical story. Petra's decision to go against her teacher is an emotional one, in response to his logical decision to kill those in a manner more humane than letting them get exposed to a nuclear blast. This decision ultimately makes the first experiment fail.
Don't worry about it, you'll do better in the next iteration. Next iteration?
In the movie, the class runs through the experiment 3 times, each for an act of the film. As mentioned before, James is not the main character, but in fact Petra is, taking control of the final iteration of the experiment, where instead of voting, she handpicks those who go into the bunker. All this to go against Zimmet's lesson, and pick the students based purely on emotion. By the film's end, secrets are revealed, and how the audience is meant to feel about Petra is up to them. I remember hating her character after seeing the movie the first time, but after subsequent viewings, have come to understand what purpose her character serves to the narrative overall. Logic versus emotion is the heart of the film. All, if not most, of the decisions and actions taken by the characters is based on this.
I won't be leaving here with warm memories of you because of this.
I don't care how warm your memories of me are. I only care whether I've stretched your brains to their largest possible size.
Irony is thrown in the mix when we learn why Zimmet dislikes James. The master of logic is actually reacting emotionally. In doing some research for this review and analysis, I found a lot of the reviews on IMDb for the film to cite it as pretentious and not knowing philosophy. And I argue maybe the philosophy in it is a bit suspect. In fact, the bunker experiment is very similar to an assignment I had in school, but that was in a sociology class where it was more talking about people when they interact with people. And in terms of its pretentiousness, I don't necessarily see that. I think if the film committed to logic and emotion being better than the other one, then I could kind of see that. But the way I see it, and as the film I believe portrays it, logic and emotion are just shown to be bad when used in terms of greater than the other. But in moderation or a in-between is probably the best route. It never specifically states one being better than the other, even though there are characters in the film who state that. They aren't necessarily proven right, and they're not necessarily proven wrong. There are aspects that I just feel were not implemented properly within the film to really maximize what I think the film was going for in terms of discussing sociology and specifically philosophy. I mean, it was originally called The Philosophers.
Do you know what apocalypse actually means?
Tell me.
It's from the Greek. Apocalypsis. Meaning to uncover what you couldn't see before. A way out of the dark.
After the Dark is a very unique film, and one that I often love to think about in terms of its ideas and themes. On my scale of 1 to 10, After the Dark, it's a solid 7. Thinking about a film long after seeing it is to me the groundwork for amazing filmmaking. Check this one out if you get a chance.
Oh, right. I read a great line in bed last night. I was going to mention this. Philosophy is to real life as masturbation is to sex.
At least you're reading.